Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Soraya. I'm very, very happy to be here with you today in order to introduce you the Airbus Biz Lab. I work at the Airbus Biz Lab as coach and program manager. The Airbus Biz Lab exists for 5 years. It exists in India, in France, in Spain, and in Germany. I am personally working in the Madrid campus. And this is the moment when you're like, yes, but what is the Airbus Biz Lab? So the Airbus Biz Lab is the Aerospace accelerator of Airbus. What we are doing basically is that we are hosting and financing during 6 to 12 months startups together with intrapreneurs. I guess that you all know what startups are. Startups are entrepreneurs that we are celebrating today at South Summit. But maybe some of you don't know what intrapreneurs are. Intrapreneurs are people working within very big companies, and at some point in their life, they feel, well, I want to do more. I want to give more. And I'll do it by creating a project that has nothing to do with my day job, with what I've been hired for, but a project that makes sense for the business of my company and a project that I've had the idea of for the last X years. And basically what we're doing is that we are hosting these people, intrapreneurs, with startups in our accelerator. And we are giving to these people the opportunity to prove to Airbus that they are trustable long-term partners. And how we are doing it? Well, our startup have the opportunity to develop for and with Airbus proof of concepts. They have 6 months to develop this proof of concept, and if at the end of the 6 months the proof of concept is successful, then they can sign bigger contract with Airbus. And I guess you all can imagine that signing a big contract with Airbus is very, very good business for a startup. So today, I'm very honored to introduce you 3 of the startups that are going to be or have already been accelerated at the Biz Lab Madrid. Please welcome on stage Enrique from Cedrion. Gracias.
Hi everybody, my name is Enrique and I am from Cedrion. First of all, thanks Soraya for your presentation. We are now in the Biz Lab. We will start next week our incubation. And what's what we do? The problem that we want to solve is that the electronics each time are getting smaller and smaller, and you ask them to be much more powerful. And it makes those electronics to get heat. But the cooling devices or the cooling systems, they are not being as fast developing as the electronics. So we have created some new devices based on plasma that they are very light, compact, adaptable, and more or less they are silent and they don't have any moving parts. So they suppose not to need any maintenance. We have patented our technology, and the main thing is that our device, this is one of our devices. This device takes air all around and pushes it forward, so it can refrigerate any electronic device or electric motor, for example. The actual technologies against what we are fighting are the fan-assisted heatsink and the heatsink. Okay. Our power is in our lightness. So if we try to measure the heat transfer we can do per kilo of device, if we are in around 22, the fan-assisted is less than a half of our device, and the heatsink is very, very low because it's very heavy. Okay, that's why we call the attention of Airbus, and that's why we are here in the Biz Lab. This is the market that we are facing, first in Spain and then the whole Europe. On the one hand, we want to go from drones. small applications inside the drones or the motors of the drones. And on the other hand, we want to go for aircraft, avionics, substituting the fans on a plane, things like that, okay? And this is our team. We are 7 engineers. Our technology has merged 3 parts of engineering areas. We have electronics, materials. We're trying with new materials, new manufacturing ways of manufacturing, and then thermal and fluid dynamics. And we've been incubated with the European Space Agency, and we have contracts with lots of research centers in Madrid, with INDEA. They are doing events with us, in the Université Carlos III, and also in the Universidad Politécnica. And that's all. We drive the flow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Now, please give a big round of applause for Daniel from Ienai Space.
Okay, so the name was actually wrong. It's not Ienai, it's Ienai. I'm Daniel Perez from Ienai Space. And I wanted to start with actually a quick question. If I say the word rocket, what do you guys think of? Maybe something like this, SpaceX, the Falcon Heavy, amazing rocket, amazing machine. What about if I say the word satellite? Maybe you'll think of the International Space Station, the largest man-made object that we have in orbit right now. Okay, so what if I told you that most of the satellites, over 90% actually, of the satellites that are going to be launched in the future look nothing like this. They actually look something like this. And most of the rockets in the future will not look like SpaceX Falcon Heavy, but will actually look like something like this bit here. So, here's a picture of the International Space Station actually launching these satellites. These are what we call CubeSats. They come in many shapes and sizes, but they're capable of doing a lot of stuff, from Earth observation to communications to GPS, constellations, everything that you need today on a satellite, everything that you have today on a typically sized satellite, you will have in the future in these very, very small satellites. There's only one issue. 90% of them don't have access to onboard propulsion. So this makes our mission really simple, actually. This is what we want to do, onboard propulsion for every CubeSat. Now, before I get into why you need onboard propulsion for the CubeSats, let me talk to you a little bit why this might be of interest to you. So you might not know much about the small satellite market, but it's a very interesting market at the moment. Small satellites are anything under 1,000 kilos, okay? Typically, most of them will be under 300 kilos, actually. And it's a satellite that's concentrated mainly, it's a market that's concentrated mainly in the US and Europe. 80% of the market is in the US and Europe, but obviously China is growing, Latin America is growing, Australia is also a big player. But let's talk about numbers first. This market is going to be $7.5 billion by 2022, which is not a small number, I would say. It has a 20% annual growth. So if you're coming from other industries, think about any industry that has a 20% annual growth. I would say that that's not very common. And it's going to have 3,000 new satellites in the next 5 years, most of them this size. For us, particularly, for Ienai, which we do the propulsion systems, that means about a 300 million opportunity. In case anyone's interested in investing, that's what we're aiming for. So how are we going to tackle the challenges that are coming with these new satellites? We do it with an advanced propulsion technology. It's based on what we call electrospray thruster. That's the hardware side. We also have a software side, which is a proprietary software, which will allow us to provide services to our clients from preliminary design to integration to operation of the satellite. And these two things combined will allow the satellite to very efficiently do things like orbit racing or precision maneuvering, or something that I think a lot of you will be interested today, which is deorbiting. You probably know about the issue of space junk, okay? So if we don't want these to become junk in the future, we need to bring them back into the atmosphere so that they can burn up and not become trash. So what are our key differentiators? Okay, we have a technology that is actually 3 times better in efficiency compared to competing technologies, and we can talk about the technology later if you're interested. Even at lower powers, it says there under 100 watts, but actually one of these micro rockets consumes 1 watt of power. You have about 5 watts in the whole CubeSat. We're also aiming for a mass reduction of 40% in comparison to competing technologies. This is very important because right now launching 1 kilo of mass to orbit is about 30,000 euros. Okay, so if you save half of the mass, you're saving a lot of money, especially if you're sending thousands of these satellites up there. We have a dual mode operation. We have a high thrust mode for whenever that's needed, but also an eco mode, which saves a lot of propellant in case you need to do that. And finally, we want to provide a subsystem that's customized to each mission and platform. So this is us. This is the Ienai space team. We're a group of scientists, PhDs, engineers, physicists, etc. We also look great on camera, as you can see, so that's always a plus. And we've had leadership opportunities in big companies like Rolls-Royce, or actually Airbus, and also big research institutions like INTA or ONERA, the French ONERA. And we bring the set of skills that's actually necessary to elevate or to put into orbit something like this. So I'll be happy to take your questions afterwards if you're interested, or come by the booth to ask us. Thank you. And we are Ienai Space, and we're pushing satellites further for longer.
Thank you very much, Daniel. How impressive, isn't it? Now I would like to welcome on stage Rodrigo from Urban Data Eye.
Seas that rise when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone.
You are data. Every step you take in this room, how long you are seated, your movement is important data for cities to make better public spaces. Without the information of your movement, retailers, manufacturers, they don't know what is going on, so they have to make decisions based on intuition. In Urban Data Eye, we are a data analytics platform that transforms the movement of any kind of object into actionable data, so companies can make data-driven decision-making processes. We use any existing camera. This is one in the center of Madrid. This is Callao Square. And our algorithm extracts automatically and in real time all movement that happens in any of those cameras. It tracks any kind of objects, people, bikes, aircraft pieces, furniture, whatever. It tracks the trajectory of every single of those objects. But the most important thing is that it does it in a completely anonymous way. We only use low-resolution images where it's impossible to recognize a face or a car plate or any personal data. Actually, we started this as an ethical principle, and then we solved the technical challenge of having one of the highest accuracies in the world, even though with using low-resolution images. The clients simply connect the cameras into our platform, and they start receiving actionable data straight to their phone, laptops, or any mobile device. And what do we mean by actionable data? The city of Pittsburgh invested more than $20 million to refurbish Market Square. But after the refurbishment, they still had the same problems of attendance, economic performance of the retailers around the area, and problems of security. With our data, they discovered that 87% of the people only use the center of the square. So after the city invested $20 million, citizens were not in the right place because the center of the square is the farthest point from all the retailers in the perimeter. So with our data, they decided to simply redistribute the furniture of the square. And in 4 days only, the revenue and the conversion rates of the shops skyrocketed because they were able to double the amount of people moving in front of the entrance of those retailers. So very simple decisions that doesn't cost even money have the biggest impact in the quality of public space. We work for cities, as you can imagine with the examples, but we also provide the movement of these objects for shopping malls, so they understand the behavior of the customers inside the shopping mall and, for example, adjust pricing of the rents to the tenants. and also to Airbus, in which we provide them the movement of the aircraft pieces, the tools, and the transporters, so the engineers know in real time where everything is, and if there is any delay that is happening, so they can solve it on the spot, in the right moment. Well, in the end, all our movement is data, and without that data, we are completely blind on how to increase the quality of any large space, such as this huge La Nave. So what we transform is that data into actionable and meaningful information to increase the quality of those spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. So now we have a little time left. So I would like to invite all the startups, the 3 startups that have been pitching for you today. And I would like to give you the opportunity to ask us questions. So about their startups, about the Airbus Biz Lab.
About the propulsion system, what kind of data does it collect from space? Like, what does it receive? Yeah.
The propulsion system itself, or the satellite?
The satellite.
So the satellite can actually do anything that any kind of satellite does. So basically, you have to think about this as your phone, right? Like, if you think about your phone 10 years ago versus what it is today, the electronics and the systems and the sensors have miniaturized so much that you can now put things in such a small package, right? So anything from, obviously, I mean, the most obvious one is cameras, like Planet Labs, which is a big company in the US. They're doing a 1-day refreshment rate for cameras, so observation of Earth. So imagine if you have maybe a plot of land and you're planting tomatoes, like on a day-to-day basis, you can see those grow from space. I mean, something else would be communications, so satellite-to-satellite communications, Wi-Fi, you know, that SpaceX is also building Starlink. Eventually, that still requires a little bit of power because in order to send down the signal, you need a little bit of power, but potentially, eventually, you would have communication satellites that would also be, let's say, this size, or a lot of science missions as well. There's actually, these CubeSats are on Mars right now. There's a mission by NASA called Marco, and they send CubeSats not exactly this size, just a little bit bigger, but they sent them to Mars, and they're sending back, relaying information on real time back to Earth from the rovers. So anything and everything that you can think of satellites doing today, eventually GPS, will also be coming from this. We actually started this company because we won a communication prize, and our objective was to do a lunar positioning system for future manned missions, and we use a CubeSat and our electric propulsion technology to, let's say, deploy the constellation around the moon to deliver, let's say, that service. So that's the reason why we started the company, actually. So really a lot of uses, actually.
Wow.
About the propulsion system again, I'm just curious, is it run by like a fan, or is it like
No.
is it like just with the chip and it's
There's
exerting?
There's no air in space, obviously.
Yeah.
So no, it's not a fan.
It's impossible.
It's close to, maybe some of you have heard about ion thrusters, it's a type of ion thruster. But instead of being based on a plasma, like the guys from Cedrion does, I'm a plasma physicist, like I come from plasmas, but I decided that for propulsion, they're not good enough. So we do an ion thruster that's based on something called ionic liquids, but we can talk later more about it if you're interested. It's a little bit technical. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question for Daniel and another one for Enrique. Daniel, I'm curious about the source of energy. Is it a solar type of transformation to battery localized in the cube, or how does it work?
Yeah, basically, this is a mock-up, basically. So what you would normally have, and if you look at our video online, you'll see that typically these are covered by solar panels on each side, okay? So one of these cubes has about 5 watts of power. Now, I want you to think about if at your home you have a light bulb that has 5 watts of power. You probably do not. None of you have, actually. So 5 watts of power is really, really limited. So when we were starting the company, we thought, okay, there's a niche that's really not covered, and that's that 90% of satellites that are about this size that really don't have access to propulsion. The reason is that most of our competitors work in 20 watts, 30 watts, and over. And as I said before, this chip here, this very small chip, can work with 1 watt of power. So it's specifically oriented towards small satellites. Now, we are very lucky in the sense that the technology is very scalable. So when we were talking with Airbus, actually, we said, we can make it this small, but we can also make it quite large if you want. So we actually proposed to them doing a proof of concept for OneWeb, which is a 150 kilo satellite. It's about that size, more or less. And that has a lot more power on it, but because the technology is very scalable, we can also, let's say, work with that kind of powers, actually.
So it's like a downsizing of the circuit of the microgrid in the International Space Station, something like that?
Yeah, the electronics are basically represented by this green board that you see here, and we've been doing the electronics design already. So we're 100% sure that we can make it into this size. And actually, one of the other things that differentiates us a little bit from our competitors is that most of them use a whole unit, a whole cube for their propulsion subsystem. We only use half a cube. So even if you only had this to let's say, take into orbit, you would still have a little bit of space to put sensors or electronics on it. So yeah.
Great. And the question for Enrique is that we saw a lot of women in your group, okay? And we are a women business angels organization that we invest in led startups by women and only in tech. So my question is, are they in the ownership or they're only at the C-level management?
Well, I don't know if it, but we have there are 3 wonderful engineers, and we think all of us are wonderful engineers. But anyway, we are the 2 partners are we 2 men, and one of them she's doing the doctorate in materials, and she will probably grow and become a leader, as she's quite young. And the other 2 girls, they are very specialist on fluid dynamics. Nowadays, they are not managing the company.
Okay, if you think about it and you change and you give them stock, come and see us.
Well, you can give us a
Of
card.
course.
We will talk about that later.
Not to steal your thunder, Enrique, but one of our co-founders is a woman. So just so that you know.
Last question.
Hi there. To Urban Data Eye, you haven't gotten a question yet. I'm wondering about the proof of concept you did with Airbus. Was that in an airport? And what airports are you actually working with at the moment? The impact of that?
Actually, we started working with Airbus in something that is going to sound very weird. We started to work with the autonomous taxi, the Bahana. Maybe you have seen it, the system that will take us from anywhere in the city to somewhere to another place in the city. Why we started working with that? Because the idea was that if with our cameras pointing down, we can track all the movement. If we point it up, we can make an air traffic management system for all those flying objects that are going to be flying around the city. So this is our first contract that we started with Airbus, and we are continuing. So it's an air traffic management based on cameras, automatic and in real time. What we are doing now, which is kind of huge also for Airbus, is that we are providing the engineers in the assembly lines, so with what they call the work in progress. If you know something about production and industrial facilities, the work in progress in real time, and of everything that is going on. So basically now they have, like in public spaces, manual monitoring. They send someone to check that everything is okay every now and then. With the technology, they know at any time how the process is going, if any delay is happening, so they can solve it on the spot. And also where are all the pieces located, how is the occupancy rate of all the transporters, that in this industry are very, very expensive, sometimes millions of euros for transporter, so they can optimize and try to reach 100% of occupancy in all the tools, all the thing that is going on in the factory. With airports, we don't work with Airbus, but we have contacts with Gatwick, Schiphol, as there are areas that have retail and a lot of movement, crowd, and we can apply we are trying to do the same technology for airports. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. I would like to especially highlight the talents of our CEOs here because they make very complex technologies look super simple. This is something smart and successful CEO do. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Soraya.
Thank you. I have a last message. Sorry, I have a last message for all of you who have startups. If you relate to aerospace industry, if you think that your company is related to aerospace industry, if you have international ambitions, we are Airbus, we can help you scale up your business internationally. And if you want to create the future of the aerospace industry, please come and see us. We have a booth over there. Thank you very much. Bye.